Donald Trump gave a speech over the weekend at the NRA convention. Now, keep in mind, this is days after the shooting in Uvalde, and the conversation around gun control, of course, is very prominent right now because of that shooting and us recognizing maybe we should do something to prevent deranged people from getting such dangerous killing machines, such as a gun or killing tools. And the NRA has stood against any of those reasonable actions being taken by contributing tons of money and putting out tons of false information on these issues, and like I said, contributing money to politicians so that the politicians don't act on gun control. Specifically, Republicans are the ones they, are buddy-buddy with. So, Trump still went to the speech, and that's what we're going to be watching right now. Here we go.
And officially removed America's signature from the United Nations gun ban treaty right
This guy's
here
about to
in
be
our
done.
leadership forum.
1 second.
He promised us he'd protect our freedom.
He's
He kept
introducing
that
him.
promise. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming fellow NRA member and the 45th President of the United States of America, Donald J. Trump.
We will mute it so we don't get copyrighted. Super chat is not working yet, but we're close. After all this growth, my watch hours have gone up a lot, and we should be there soon. And once we are, I'll let you know so that we can get this thing monetized, baby. Make some moolah. Oh, look, they're having a conversation. Hey, how about you go to the podium and speak? No, I'm kidding. I know he has to go through the whole song. La-di-la-di-la. Oh, and he's pacing. So I'm going to be curious to see if he even addresses the Uvalde shooting. Probably not. Maybe he will. I don't know. Maybe he'll say something about, they're politicizing it by trying to talk about gun control. Yes, talking about a solution is politicizing it. Okay. Did he just do a Hail Hitler salute? That was weird. His clap, iconic. Oh, we're going to be covering this starting on Thursday, I think. No, starting tomorrow. The women's, the Turning Point USA, women event. Conservative women event. So keep up with that, peeps. And we're... So wait, he only speaks for an hour? I think that's what I saw, yeah. He barely changes his campaign speeches. He gets way off topic. Yeah, he always does. That's one thing you can depend on. He's gonna dance. He hasn't done this little jig in a while. God bless the USA.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
USA. They're not even in sync. Come on, guys.
Well, thank you, Wayne, and thank you, Jason. I'm honored to be here in the great state of Texas with the wonderful patriots of the NRA. And unlike some, I didn't disappoint you by not showing up. Gotta show up.
You should have disappointed.
Gotta show up.
That would have been better.
For more than 150 years,
We
the
would have preferred
NRA
that.
has stood strong and tall in defense of our rights, our freedoms, our families, our law enforcement officers, and our sacred liberties as Americans. And together we're going to be standing strong and tall.
They stood for our officers? The same ones that are being murdered by these guns that we have in the hands of anybody who wants them.
All for many, many years to come. And I really do appreciate this incredible turnout. I want to express my tremendous gratitude to each and every one of the proud citizens here today. You are the backbone of our movement, and you are the backbone of our country. You know that. I just heard him. He made a wonderful speech. Ted Cruz, Senator, where are you? Thank you very much. Ted, thank you very much. Great job. Governor Kristi Noem is here. Kristi, thank you. Kristi, doing a fantastic job. In North Carolina, this is a hot politician. He's a hot politician. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. I don't know where you are, Mark. I don't know where Mark is, but he is fantastic. We just had a very good day, as you know, in North Carolina. As we gathered this week, citizens across this state and across this nation are filled with grief in the wake of the heinous massacre of Robb Elementary School in Uvalde. You know all about that, and what a horrible, horrible thing it was to see it, to watch it, to hear about it. The terrible murder of 19 innocent children.
It's a horrible thing to hear about it, to see it, but we shouldn't do anything to prevent future things like it.
Children and 2 adult teachers, with many badly injured, was a savage and barbaric atrocity that shocks the conscience of every single American. So horrible. I want to ask for a brief moment of silence as I read the names of these beautiful people, all young, wonderful lives ahead of them. They're brave teachers whose lives were destroyed by an out-of-control lunatic. So we'll start. Alexandria Rubio. Aletha Ramirez. Amory Garza. Annabelle Guadalupe Rodriguez. Eliana Cruz Torres. Ellie Garcia. Jacqueline Cazares. Jayla Nicole Silguro. Jace Lovarners. Jose Flores. Leila Salazar. McKenna Lee Elrod. Maitai Rodriguez. Miranda Mathis. Nevaeh Bravo. Rogelio Torres. Tess Marie Mata. Ozia Garcia. Javier Lopez. 2 great and beautiful, brilliant teachers, Eva Morales, Irma Garcia. And thank you very much. It's a beautiful moment of silence for something that should never have even been thought about, let alone happened. Each precious young soul that was taken is an incomprehensible loss. Literally.
I don't know what would be worse. Yeah, someone's saying in chat, him ignoring the issue or paying respect to the issue while recognizing the event that he is at is for a organization that undeniably advocates for positions that will lead to more of these being likely in the future. So upsetting.
Not comprehensible, stolen from us by a malice that no words can describe. Sickness. The monster who committed this crime is pure evil, pure cruelty, pure hatred, absolute pure hatred. And while those he slaughtered are now with God in heaven, he will be eternally damned to burn in the fires of hell. As we mourn for so many beautiful victims, I know that everyone here joins me in praying for the families who are suddenly missing the brightest light in their lives. We see their agony. We ask God.
We don't want your thoughts and prayers if you're not willing to put everything you can into preventing things like this from happening in the future.
To ease their suffering and to heal their pain, and together we grieve side by side as one great American family. Now is the time to find common ground. Sadly, before the sun had even set on the horrible day of tragedy, we witnessed a now familiar parade of cynical politicians seeking to exploit the tears of sobbing families to increase their own power and take away our constitutional rights. Every time a disturbed or demented person commits such a hideous crime, there's always a grotesque effort by some in our society to use the suffering of others to advance their own extreme political agenda. Even more repulsive is their rush to shift blame away from the villains who commit acts of mass violence and to place that blame onto the...
Yes. After a tragedy, it is exploiting the tragedy to talk about how we could prevent future tragedies like that in the future. What? No, that's exactly what we should be talking about. Of course, we need to talk about how sad it is, how horrifying, and send our support, our thoughts of support to the people involved or the people affected. Of course. And then our focus should be, how do we keep things like this from happening in the future? Because we can't go back and prevent what just happened, but we can prevent future things like it. It's not politicizing the event. It's not, or it is, because it's a political solution, or a solution that has to be enacted through political means, because that's the way we organize our societies, through a political system. But it's not exploiting the tears, as he said, of the victims to want to find a way to prevent this from happening and causing more people to become victims in the future.
Shoulders of millions of peaceful, law-abiding citizens who belong to organizations such as our wonderful NRA. When Joe Biden blamed the gun lobby, he was talking about Americans like you. And along with countless other Democrats this week, he was shamefully suggesting that Republicans are somehow okay with letting school shootings happen. They're not okay with it. This rhetoric is highly divisive and dangerous, and most importantly, it's wrong. It has no place in our politics. As always, in the wake of these tragedies, the various gun control policies being pushed by the left would have done nothing to prevent the horror that took place, absolutely nothing. Unfortunately, ever since Columbine, we've been afflicted by a contagion of school shootings carried out by deeply evil, violent, and mentally disturbed.
I'm sure he's going to say something about this, but just to be clear, mental health is a big part of this. I mean, it's everything in relation to why the person did it. It's something mental. And obviously that comes from their environment and whatever. But the ability of someone who has these issues and is deranged to have the ability to get such a effective killing tool is the reason why we focus on guns. And we should also be investing in mental health treatment in general, better mental health services within schools, because these school shooters are students often, or former students, almost always, if not always. And so we should, of course, and I don't know why we aren't doing this either, invest in mental health and completely revamp the way that we think about mental health in society. It is as important as physical health. And if we can do that, it will help to prevent things like this in the future. But we can't get every single one. Someone's gonna fall through the cracks. And when they do, but what I mean is we can't help every single person get out of being so mentally disturbed. And so when they can't be helped, the idea that they can so easily get access to a weapon that would allow them to not only kill someone but kill so many people is important to focus on as well.
Young men. Well, we don't yet know enough about this week's killing. We know there are many things we must do. We need to drastically change our approach to mental health. There are always so many warning signs. Almost all of these disfigured minds share the same profile. When people see something, whether on social media or in school, they need to say something. Teachers, parents, school officials, and community members need to be recognizing and addressing these alarm bells promptly and very, very aggressively. And our school discipline systems, instead of making excuses and continually turning a blind eye, need to confront bad behavior head on and quickly. And clearly we need to make it far easier to confine the violent and mentally deranged into mental institutions. We have also, very importantly, got to deal with the problem of broken families, because no law can cure the effects of a broken home. There is no substitute for a strong mom and a great dad.
Again, a stable family is so crucial to this. Part of the reason, a huge reason why people are so broken mentally is because they come from honestly, all of it, a broken family. And again, there's two ends of this. Address how can we societally improve the state of families, and for those who don't have improved families yet or won't ever, or the ones in the future that won't, let's prevent them from having such easy access to killing tools. I use the word effective. It's usually used in like a positive way, but effectively killing people is what these tools can do. Guns, obviously, is what I'm talking about.
But while we work to address these deep, complicated issues and deal with this scourge, all of us must unite, Republican and Democrat, in every state and at every level of government, to finally harden our schools and protect our children.
Are you kidding me? You're saying while the Republican Party is working to... Oh, I guess I don't know what I say. Don't act like Republicans are working at all to address mental health. Like if you don't want to address gun control, don't act like any actions have been taken over the last couple decades to meaningfully address the issues with broken families and mental health. They want to say it's about the families, but what have you done to improve that aspect of this conversation?
Children. What we need now is a top-to-bottom security overhaul at schools all across our country. Every building should have a single point of entry. There should be strong exterior fencing, metal detectors, and the use of new technology to make sure that no unauthorized individual can ever enter the school with a weapon.
Yes, Andrew. Hasty, I do look at chat. And just to be clear, the one point of entrance in some schools could work. Some schools are broken up, but for each building, I think having only one entry and having someone guarding it is totally fine. But it was Ted Cruz saying one entry and exit, I think is what he said. One way in and out. That's what he said. It's so stupid. Because you need people to be able to exit the building easily in the case of fire or any other thing. So there should be lots of doors. They should just be locked except for one per building. That's totally fine. That's how my school was. You had to go to the front entrance if you wanted to get in. And you actually had to buzz in, and someone had to let you in. That's all fine to me. It's just you can't limit the number of exits, which obviously will open you up to someone opening it and the shooter being able to grab it open.
No one should ever be able to get anywhere near a classroom until they have been checked, scanned, screened, and fully approved. So important. In addition, classroom doors should be hardened to make them lockable from the inside and closed to intruders from the outside. And above all, from this day forward, every school in America should have a police officer or an armed resource officer on duty at all times. Moreover, at every police department in America, we need a rigorous training on active shooter protocols to immediately locate and eliminate the target. Took too long. And we need to expand funding, recruiting, and training for police departments nationwide. This is not a matter of money. This is a matter of will. If the United States has $40 billion to send to Ukraine, we should be able to do whatever it takes to keep our children safe at home. That's true. We spent trillions in Iraq, trillions in Afghanistan. We got nothing. Before we nation build the rest of the world, we should be building safe schools for our own children in our own nation, right? Last year alone, Biden and congressional Democrats sent $122 billion in so-called COVID relief funds to K through 12 schools, even while they were keeping many of our schools totally shut down, no doubt severely worsening the mental health challenge of many youth. I mean, many of these young people really suffered very greatly. They became very ill. They may have been ill to start, but they became very, very ill. Congress should vote immediately to take back every penny of unused COVID relief money, take it back from the states, and use that money to quickly establish impenetrable security at every school all across our land. As many have noted, inner city schools rarely have these kinds of mass shootings. I didn't know that until just recently. Think of that. They rarely have this problem, despite being located in very tough neighborhoods in many cases where there's
You know what's funny? I bet you in that moment he learned of it right then, reading it off his teleprompter. Inner city schools don't have mass shooting. I just learned that a little bit ago. Jared said, don't most schools already have an officer? Pretty sure the one in Uvalde did. There was some misreporting on that. It turns out there wasn't an armed guard, or at least he didn't engage with the shooter like it was previously reported. But again, a lot of what he's saying, I'm fine with. I'm great with, like making schools really secure, having an officer there. Like if you have a big population of children, just like how you have big populations of people in stadiums and they have officers there just to keep watch, and auditoriums when there's big performances or really normal sizes performances, they'll have officers there. When you have a lot of people together and the threat of a mass, shooting or something, you want officers there. That's totally fine. But the reason why it gets really annoying to people is like all of this and, is what the conversation should be. All this and gun control. All of this and background checks, universal background checks, improving our ability to recognize people before they do school shootings, because a lot of them do post about it on social media. And of course, investing in mental health treatment. All of what they're saying, in some cases, at least what he's listed off, is perfectly reasonable. But don't use it as a distraction from gun control, which is a very obvious solution. Do it in addition to gun control. And we're just talking about common sense stuff too.
Tremendous levels of high crime and violence. They're much more dangerous outside the school than inside. The reason is that for decades, inner city schools have had much stronger security measures in place in the school itself, including metal detectors and, yes, armed guards. They had guns. Armed guards. Whatever our differences may be on other issues, what on earth is stopping Democrats from immediately passing measures to ramp up school security? How many more tragedies will it take until they agree to set aside their far-left political agenda and do what is really needed and what actually works? This is not about virtue cycling and signing. This is about blaming your enemies. No, we don't want to do that. This is about saving.
It's not about signing. He's trying to say virtue signaling. That's hilarious.
Our children's lives. Yes, that's what we want to do. Surely we can all agree our schools should not be the softest target. Our schools should be the single hardest target in our country.
Virtue cycling.
And that's why, as part of a comprehensive school safety plan, it's time to finally allow highly trained teachers to safely and discreetly concealed carry. Let them concealed carry. And again, they have to be able to handle it. They have to be highly trained, all of those things, but let them do that. It would be so much better and so much more effective, even from a cost standpoint. Because there is no sign more inviting to a mass killer than a sign that declares a gun-free zone. Most dangerous place. I know it sounds good, and it really does. Doesn't it sound wonderful? But it's not. And statistically, it's a total disaster. Gun-free zone, they look at that sign and they say, that's where I'm going. We cannot have that, because if somebody goes into that building, all of those innocent people will be taken out, will be killed, will be tortured. Bad things will happen. Have to get rid of it. As the age-old saying goes, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Have you ever heard that? No, you've never heard that. And in the absence of a member of law enforcement,
just all the tired talking points. You know what doesn't stop a bad guy with a gun? Even if there's a good guy with a gun? A bad guy with a gun who has a semi-automatic military-grade weapon.
there is no one you would rather have nearby when a crisis strikes than an armed, expertly trained member of the NRA. True.
So true.
Let's not pretend that those on the left are just talking about limiting one class of gun or one category of ammunition. You know they're not doing that. We all know they want total gun confiscation. You know that. This would be a first step. Once they get the first step, they'll take the second step, the third, the fourth, and then you'll have a whole different look at the Second Amendment, which is, by the way, totally under siege. But we stopped it. For 4 years, we stopped it. And you've got to stop it. You've got to stop it.
So, Obama didn't do anything meaningful, or I shouldn't say that, any broad, impactful action on gun control. Then Trump came in and somehow prevented, for 4 years, the assault on the Second Amendment, even though it wasn't being assaulted under Obama. And then Biden got in and didn't do anything that could be construed as an assault on the Second Amendment. So, where's this assault coming from? Y'all been screaming about it for years, but we haven't seen it happen.
But even if every decent and honest American gave up their guns, the criminals would never give up theirs, and they never will. They're never going to give up theirs. They would wreak havoc like never before in our country. The fact is, there will always be sick and...
So that point is dumb too. Obviously, we've seen when you take a lot of the, or when you restrict access to guns, you do see a decrease in gun violence. And the belief that criminals will just get it anyways is proven wrong even by this one story. Like this, because people think of criminals as like masterminds. But deranged school shooters or deranged mass shooters aren't thinking out a plot and super thoughtful and able to figure out where I could get a gun through an illegal means. The Uvalde shooter waited until his 18th birthday and then he got the gun. He didn't do it before because it's so easy. The criminal just get the gun. No, he waited till it was legal for him to get a gun and then got it. Because an 18-year-old person who was just a kid isn't knowledgeable enough to like figure out how he could illegally get his hands on a gun. So taking, well, two things. First, when you do legally get a gun, having to go through more hoops so that you can recognize people who are deranged before they get their gun. But then also limiting just the flow of firearms into all of these communities will decrease people's ability to get their hands on dangerous weapons.
Demonic souls who wish to harm the innocent and see malice triumph over good. Going to have that. But the existence of evil in our world is not a reason to disarm law-abiding citizens who know how to use their weapon and can protect a lot of people. The existence of evil is one of the very best reasons to arm law-abiding citizens. And equipped, responsible American men and women with the knowledge and tools they need to defend themselves, their families, and their communities, have to defend their communities and their families. Every single year, the NRA's 125,000 certified instructors, these are highly trained, very, very capable people. They train an incredible 1 million Americans to be safer gun owners, ready to act when the situation calls. An incredible job. And every day, that training is protecting the vulnerable and safeguarding the innocent. An estimated 500,000 to 2.5 million Americans each year use a firearm in self-defense, the vast majority without ever even having to fire a shot. Oftentimes, they know you have it, and they say, no, thank you. We're not gonna mess with her. In addition, according to newly released data from the FBI, last year there were not one, not two, not three, but 4 active shooters who were taken out by an armed civilian bravely exercising their Second Amendment rights, saving countless innocent lives. That is what the Second Amendment is all about. We're honored to be joined today by a true Texas hero. The Sunday after Christmas in 2019, veteran firearms instructor Jack Wilson was attending services at the West Freeway Church of Christ outside of Fort Worth. He saw a strange man enter the church, and after that, Jack never took his eyes off him, would not leave him. He knew something was wrong, right up until the man approached the person serving communion and pulled out a gun. Thankfully, after Texas passed a law allowing concealed carry in places of worship, Jack had volunteered to lead his church's citizens security team, and he knew what he was doing. Instantly, Jack and another congregant pulled out their firearms very quickly, very professionally. The shooter gunned down Jack's team member and then turned and killed the man serving Holy Communion. Amid the chaos, Jack had only an instant to take aim. He saw his chance and took out the shooter with a single perfect shot. Incredible. Come on up here, Jack. Come on up here, Jack. Stay right here. Stay right there, Jack. Thanks to Jack's sharp eye and swift action, the shooter was down within 6 seconds out from pulling his gun. Think of that, 6 seconds. And with more than 240 worshipers in the church, which perhaps all would be gone right now, Jack had saved the lives of an untold number of innocent people that he knew very well and he loved. Jack, we want to thank you for a job well done. We salute you, a true professional, a really great man. Jack, say a few words, Jack.
Thank each and every one of you. Again, thank you, President Trump, and you're still my president. What I did that day was not for my glory. It was to save countless friends and family in that setting. I hope you're never put in that position, but understand if you are put in that position, you have to make that decision to do what is right. Not what somebody says, well, you shouldn't do that. No. I did not kill a human being that day. I took out evil. And just as what happened in Uvalde this week, that was evil. We have to deal with evil at all levels. You have to stand up and be prepared to protect and do what you have to do to stop evil in this country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Great man. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jack. And as Jack's story reminds us, defending our Second Amendment is about defending law, order, and life. We know that. As law and order conservatives, we have no higher goal than to reduce violent crime by the greatest degree possible. And there is no mystery as to what is required. Over the past 2 years, our nation has paid a horrifically bloody price for the Democrats' defund the police rhetoric and their weak on crime policies. We have paid a big price. In every city where the left attacked the police, slashing funding, or hired radical prosecutors, violent crime has skyrocketed. Last year, 12 major cities hit all-time highs. This is the history of our country, all-time highs in record homicides, and this year is looking far, far.
I can almost guarantee that's not true. All-time highs, nope, impossible. Because crime was way higher before this kind of more modern era. And while we have seen a rise, it's not even close to where it used to be. But also, the reason, first of all, I am not some, as y'all know, I'm not someone who's for defund the police. I do think recognizing in some cities, maybe the police budget's too big and they, afford all these needless equipment, and maybe you reallocate some of that to social services. If that's what your city needs, maybe it works. In general, though, I think fund the police well, just change the way that they're, the way they operate, the way that they're trained, the very nature of the police department, I think needs to be changed, but not the funding. I think that'll, as I've said before, just cause a less funded, but still as mismanaged, misorganized police department as before. I don't think that solves any issue. But saying that defund the police, led to the rise in crime in these cities is silly, because we've seen a rise in crime nationwide in cities that didn't defund the police as well in parallel. Oh no, we have another bot spamming some weird stuff in chat.
Worse, not even close.
Shadow Murloc? No, you're not banned.
Run Sacramento last year,
I don't
a man
ban
with
anyone.
a long criminal history was released from jail on zero bail and wish that he would never have been put in jail. That was his wish. Weeks later, he broke into an innocent woman's home, sexually assaulted her, murdered her, killed her 2 dogs, and set her house on fire. This past February in New York, another horrible person with at least 6 prior arrests was released without bail before going on a stalking tour after a 35-year-old woman went into her apartment, stabbing her to death and leaving her body in the bathtub. And recently in Philadelphia,
I will say for sure, certain Democratic leaders in certain cities have gone too far with the, it's all about reformation. It should be about reformation, reforming these criminals, but that doesn't mean that you let them out so quickly. There's some weird anecdotes like, what the heck? You let out this criminal? It was so obvious that they needed to be in there longer. So this is a actual good point to press Democrats on. But generally, the Democratic Party is only talking about, lessening sentences and stuff for drug crimes and stuff like that. Not so much violent crimes, but there are some anecdotes for sure that are concerning.
Philadelphia, a thug murdered an innocent man walking his dog 2 weeks after being released on armed kidnapping and assault charges, where he badly hurt a number of people. The very same Democrat politicians who stoked riots over a single police-involved killing 2 years ago are numb to the mounting death toll of their own radical policies. But we must not be. We cannot let that happen. Big city mayors like Lori Lightfoot in Chicago, Muriel Bowser in Washington, Jim Kenney in Philadelphia watch the slaughter day in and day out and do absolutely nothing. But we must act. If America had a proper approach to policing, prosecuting, and jailing, we could cut violent crime in our major cities by much more than half, and it would take place almost immediately. Under the greatest mayor in the history of New York, Rudy Giuliani, they cut violent crime by 58% and the murder rate by 66% in just a few years. And then it got better than that. And under our own administration, we significantly reduced violent crime 3 years in a row. We resurrected Project Safe Neighborhoods, bringing together prosecutors, police, sheriffs, and citizen groups to get dangerous felons off the streets and off the streets rapidly. We funded 200 new violent crime prosecutors. With Operation Legend, we surged hundreds and hundreds of federal law enforcement officers to Democrat-run cities that you've heard so many horrible things about, to put violent offenders behind bars where they belong. When they started knocking down statues in Washington, D.C. and other locations, I watched this in amazement. Lincoln, Jefferson, Washington, knocking them down. And I immediately signed an executive order which stated that anybody even lightly defaces a federal monument or statue will get a minimum of 10 years in prison, 10 years.
That's insane.
And
Guys,
immediate
vandalism is such a low crime. Like, don't vandalize. Vandalizing is bad. It should be a crime. But vandalizing is like a very low damage level crime compared to all of the other ones. And the fact that you would give 10 years minimum for even, he said, the lightest vandalism of federal monuments is nuts. Like, you get less than 10 years for some pretty bad crimes in many cases. That's like, you should still get
upon signing it, everything stopped. Do you ever notice?
Sorry, you should get criminal charges and all that. But to put someone in prison for 10 years minimum for vandalizing something is insane. Oh, that is so
it all
crazy.
stopped. There was nothing. Didn't happen. Amazing, isn't it? I felt I had a political and moral obligation to allow Democrat mayors and governors to run their cities and states when it came to crime.
All these people are saying, oh, people of January 6th are political prisoners. They're being hit so hard. You know, the book's being thrown so hard at them. All these right-wingers are saying that. The minimum of what they did was deface a federal, I don't know if you consider the Capitol a monument, but I'm sure there's monuments within it that they defaced. Vandalism was the minimum that they were doing in there. So you're saying that they should all get 10 years minimum? I bet you wouldn't believe that. And I don't even believe that. For a lot of the people who went in there, I don't think 10 years necessarily is the minimum. Like, I think some of them should get less than that, of course. The ones who were just kind of like sitting on the... you have to look at the crimes they committed, but that's whack.
And riots and even horrible violence. In my own mind, I was allowing the Democrats to show how they would handle the situation. And when it got out of control, I got involved. I got our government energized. I called the National Guard and federal law enforcement, and we saved the cities of Minneapolis, Kenosha, Seattle, Chicago, and even Portland during some very, very bad times in those places. But then they wander back to the past. But if I ever do it again, namely run for president and win, I would no longer feel obligated to do it that way. I would crack down on violent crime like never before. Which is the way I would have liked to have done it the first time, but in a certain way, I'm glad I didn't. The easiest, simplest, most straightforward thing we can do to save thousands of American lives from violence is to hire more police, arrest more violent criminals, give them speedy trials, and get them into jail. And we've now seen what the Democrats do when they're left to run the cities. So now it has to be done right. Over time, that will save tens of thousands of lives and billions of dollars. Never forget, the same people that are lecturing us about gun confiscation are the ones who are also taking cops off the street and letting criminals out of jail, knowing that it will get tens of thousands of Americans killed, and killed rather quickly, unfortunately. You really wonder, do the Democrats even care? Now, the radical left Democrats are continuing to push to abolish cash bail and to strip our police officers of their qualified immunity. Just this week, the Biden administration announced new policies threatening to hold law enforcement officers liable not only for their misconduct, but even for the misconduct of other officers, a totally destructive policy that will only make our communities less safe. What officer is going to get involved if they think they can lose everything, their family, their pension, everything? It's crazy what's going on, not even thinkable. If Democrats truly care about stopping the bloodshed in America, the Biden administration's war on police must end, and it must end right now. We will no longer defund.
Wait. It's a bad thing for cops to lose their pension if they abuse their power? That seems very reasonable to me. You don't get to keep getting paid by the city after you stop working if while you were working you led to the unnecessary death of somebody, or you wrongfully harm someone or whatever. That's bizarre.
Thank you. We will no longer... I knew it had to happen. Who is that man? Stand up, please. Who is that? Had to happen. We will no longer defund the police, and we will no longer even mention defunding of the police. We will never mention it again. Great American heroes. And
I'm not a millionaire, much less a billionaire, but I bet $1 billion that they will mention defund the police again. $1 billion. And I will work every single day in my life to make money to contribute towards that $1 billion. I won't ever achieve it, but my point is, I will put all of my wealth for the rest of my life into the garbage can, or I'll give it directly to Trump's family. If no one in the Republican Party mentions defund the police ever again, as he just said they want to do.
If allowed to do their job, they will do it like nobody else can. All of those crime statistics will be
billion.
So in such a big way, you'll be so proud. You'll be so proud to be an American when you see in Chicago, 80 people shot.
My booty is
sometimes
sore
in
from
a
sitting
weekend,
here so long.
And many people dying. That's a war zone. When you see what's happening in other cities, it's just incredible. So you'll be proud to be an American. Under a new Congress next year, we should pass legislation strengthening qualified immunity for our police officers. We have to do that. Who would ever take a job without that? Think of it. Who would ever take a job? You ruin your life. You have one bad story that may be made up, because a lot of the stories are made up. One bad.
Who would ever become a police officer if they told you you would lose your benefits or whatever? You would lose everything that you gain from being a police officer if you did a horrendous act of, abusing your power. Okay, so you're saying that police officers only want to become police officers because they know they're going to abuse someone and they want to be able to get away with it? No, tons of people would become police officers and recognize if they cross the line too much, they won't get to enjoy the benefits of being a police officer. Yeah, that's reasonable.
Made up story and your life is over. Our law enforcement men and women do their duty to protect us, and we must do our duty to protect them. Have to do it.
Yes, Doug, that's a great example. That's like saying no one would ever become a doctor if you held them responsible for malpractice. Oh, wait, we do. And people become doctors. How wild. People know that if they lead to the wrongful death and they made a negligent enough mistake, and then obviously if it was purposeful, but in all the cases that I'm aware of, negligent, then they will get their license and all of that stripped from them. But yet they still go into being a doctor. Can you imagine?
Earlier this week, the law enforcement officer who stopped the Texas shooter's rampage was reportedly a member of the group Joe Biden has most viciously betrayed and demonized the heroes of Border Patrol. He was very brave. Every day, our amazing Border Patrol agents and ICE officers are risking their lives to keep our community safe. And when we regain control of Congress, we must do that. Please remember that. We can stop socialism and communism at one time. Wouldn't that be nice? We will once again give these great patriots the authority, the resources, and the respect they need and dearly deserve. They need this. They have to have it, but we need it. We need it more than they do. There can be no doubt that the crime crisis is fueled in part by the Biden border crisis. Numbers of people coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before, probably that no country has ever seen before. When I left office, we handed the new administration the most secure, by far, border in the history of the United States. We ended catch and release. We ended asylum fraud. We struck historic agreements with Mexico. Stay in Mexico. Is that a nice sounding agreement? That is stay in Mexico. Biden immediately terminated stay in Mexico along with pipelines and every other thing. And now, congratulations, gasoline just hit in a lot of places today, $9.25.
Oh, thank you, Ryan.
We deported illegal alien gang members by the thousands, and we built nearly 500 miles of great, beautiful new border wall, the exact same specifications that the Border Patrol gave us. We got it built, and then we started building more. We're going to add another 200. We were almost finished with that. And then, lo and behold, they came in with a very bad election, very bad, to put it mildly. They came in with a bad election, and they stopped building the border wall. And when Texas went to them and wanted to use the fencing that was already bought and paid for and sitting there waiting just to go up, would have taken 3 weeks to finish it, they took it away. They wouldn't give it to them. So at least you know where they're coming from. We gave them the best border ever, and they turned it into the worst border nightmare of all time. And you are paying a very high price for that right here in Texas. You're paying a very high price. We had the greatest border, the most secure border in this country, in our country's history. Under Biden, it's always America last, one globalist sellout after another. It's America last. It's even reported that the Biden administration is considering putting UN bureaucrats in charge of your Second Amendment rights. Just like I'm sure that most of you haven't heard this, but you know I terminated the Iran nuclear deal because it was a disaster. They want to go back into it. You know who's negotiating for us? Russia and China. How's that going to work out? You think that's going to work out good? Can you imagine Russia and China saying, do you believe this? He wants us to negotiate the deal for him. This is a sad day. This is one of the saddest times for our country that I've ever seen. They want to re-enter the ridiculous UN Arms Trade Treaty and pursuing a UN ban on lead ammunition. You know that, because it's not environmentally friendly. Is there a substitute for lead? You people are better at this than me. Wayne, where's Jason? Is there a substitute? They want to get rid of lead because it's environmentally unfriendly. The last time I appeared at this NRA leadership forum, I stood before you and I proudly signed a document revoking America's signature from the globalist UN disaster. Under my leadership, we never surrenders American sovereignty. We would never surrender American sovereignty, and we always put America first. I remember in the early weeks of the Biden administration, Biden said, we're not going to stand for America first. Now, you know, even if you didn't agree with our policy, you can't say that. It is a great name, isn't it, America First? The only thing better might be Ultra MAGA. They gave us a great name. But compare that, all of the things we talk about, we see, we feel, and many of the things we don't talk about, compare that with how great America was just 2 years ago. Think of it, there was no inflation. The war with Russia going into Ukraine would never, ever have happened, would have never happened. I spoke to Putin about it, would have never, ever happened. He knew the consequences. He would have never done it. In fact, he didn't do it. Sleepy Eyes Chuck Todd on Meet the Fake Press. You ever hear of Meet the Fake Press or Deface the Nation, those shows? Ladies and gentlemen, it's President Donald Trump on Deface the Nation. But that really should be the name of these shows. But he was saying to Blinken, I believe, he said, how come this never happened with Trump? Don't forget, Georgia was given up by Bush. Hate to say it. Georgia was given up by Bush. Crimea was given up by Obama and Biden. I mean, we'll add Biden's name in that if you don't mind. Nothing was given up by Trump. And then all of Ukraine, essentially, was given up by Biden, because what do they have left? You know, with all the shooting, all the rockets, every city is being leveled. What are they going to have? There's no win here for anybody. There's no win. This should have never been allowed to start. It would have 100% never started if we didn't have a rigged election. Would have never started in a million years.
Always comes back to that.
We had $1.87 per gallon gasoline. Think of that, $1.87. Energy independence, and soon we were going to have energy dominance. We were going to be bigger than Russia and Saudi Arabia combined by a lot. We were on the way, going to be very, very soon. We were leaving Afghanistan with dignity and strength, not surrendered death, and leaving $85 billion worth of beautiful, brand new equipment, giving it to the enemy. You know, they're a tremendous arms dealer right now. They're selling most of it, because how much do they need? They don't need that. So they're selling it. They're the biggest arms dealer in many ways, I understand. On many of the charts, they are number one. Think of it, $85 billion worth of brand new stuff, helicopters, planes, goggles, everything. Well, it's a terrible thing. I believe that was the lowest point in the history of our country, the way we got it. I was the one that got it down to 2,000 soldiers, but we were going to keep Bagram. Bagram is this great air base that was built many years ago at a cost of billions and billions, but we weren't keeping it for Afghanistan. We're keeping it because it's 1 hour away from where China makes their nuclear weapons. And we left in one night. Everybody was gone. They left the lights on. Think of it. The lights were all left on. The dogs were left behind, by the way, for those people that like dogs. But we left, and they don't like dogs. You know that. They don't like dogs. They don't like them at all. But think of it. Just think of it. Billions and billions of dollars it took to build it years ago. And now China is going to occupy it very shortly, if they don't already. We had a completely rebuilt military with the addition of Space Force. First time in 78 years that's happened after Air Force. We had the Air Force was the last, and now we have Space Force. And that's going to prove to be a very important group of people, and that's exactly what it's going to be. You know, they smiled when they saw it. They came in. You saw that. The young woman with the very red hair who's now working for MSDNC, you saw that, right? And she said, Space Force, and she started laughing. And the military just excoriated her. There was nothing funny about it. And now everybody's admitting it was so important because Russia and China were way ahead of us in space, but they're not anymore. We had the biggest tax cuts and regulation cuts ever, the history of our country. And we had historic job numbers, 164 million people, and so much more. We did so much more. Even right to try, you know what that is? You're terminally ill. We gave a person the right to try new techniques, new things, new medicines. And many, many people are now alive and well because of right to try. And they didn't have to go to Asia. They didn't have to go to Europe, all over the world, or go home if they had no money and die. Right to try. They've been trying to get it for 56 years. And we got it done. Passed, actually. We got it passed. Not as easy as you think. Sounds easy, but the drug companies didn't want it because they didn't want it on their record. The country didn't want it because they didn't want to get sued. Many different things. We got everybody to sign waivers, and we have it now, and we're saving thousands of lives. It's incredible what's happened. And what it is doing is telling the drug companies, frankly, up front and personal, whether or not something works, right? So it's an amazing thing. But as a candidate, I was proud to receive the earliest endorsement in the entire history of the NRA. I tell you what, that was a very important thing. That was like getting into a great college. You say.
Just to be clear, on the right to try thing, I haven't read much into that specific issue, but my gut reaction is, yeah, I'm okay with that. If you using, the proper channels or like the proper processes and documentation, sign away that you are comfortable using a un-FDA approved medicine because you're about to die and everything else has been tried. I feel like that's reasonable. Again, I haven't read much into it, but that's my gut. So to be honest,
that feels good.
Giving them credit on that.
Everybody wanted it. Don't forget, we had a total of 18 people running. And your leadership, in which I very much appreciated, Wayne and everybody else, they said, we really like Trump. And that was before we were very much enmeshed in the campaign. People weren't sure how that was going to work out, but I can tell you it worked out very well for the NRA. So we appreciated it. We appreciated the endorsement very much. And we got it the second time, too. We got 12 million more votes the second time. How about that? Somebody said, how did you do the second time compared to the first? Well, we did much better the second time, which is true. We got many more. We did. We got many more votes the second time than we did the first, but we got two of them, and if we do this again, we hope we're going to get a third. Okay, that I can tell you. Thank you to the leadership. Thank you. And as your president, I was proud to be the best friend that law-abiding.
Ryan said, "Hey Luke, set up a super chat and I'll donate some money." Thank you so much. Because the channel's so new, we haven't reached the watch hours yet to be monetized, so we're not able to do that, but we're fastly approaching, and I'll let you know when we reach that mark, when I can monetize the channel, and then I would very much appreciate those types of contributions. But you can support the show financially by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley and becoming a patron for as little as $5 a month. And then you get a bonus show. For my current patrons, I missed obviously last week and this last Saturday, but I'm putting out multiple bonus shows to make up for it. Because I won't always be on the dot, but I will always get you guys that extra content for being subscribers. So I'll be putting out 2 bonus shows this week to make up for what I missed. But I very much appreciate everyone who becomes a patron at patreon.com/Luke Beasley.
Gun owners have ever had in the White House. So we've been given that credential. Over 4 incredible years, we appointed nearly 300 federal judges to interpret the laws and the Constitution as written, including 3 great new Supreme Court justices. When the radical Democrats tried to use COVID to shut down gun stores during the pandemic, even as left-wing rioters burned down cities, I designated gun and ammunition retailers as critical infrastructure, kept those stores open. I canceled the Obama administration's exploitation of Social Security data to deny Americans their gun rights without due process of law, which was a big deal at the time. We ended Obama's enormous abuse of power known as Operation Choke Point, under which government bureaucrats pressured banks to cut off services to firearms and the firearms industry. And we are optimistic that in the weeks to come, the Supreme Court will issue landmark rulings affirming that your rights to self-defense does not end when you step outside of your front door. And I think very importantly, as president, I stood up for America's hunters and fishers and sportsmen like no administration since Teddy Roosevelt. He was good also, I will say. We expanded access to 1.4 million acres of public lands for hunting, fishing, and recreation. We gave the American people their land back. It was taken away by government. And we stopped the Obama-era regulatory assaults on hunting, trapping, ammunition, and fishing gear. Everyone here today is united by one incredibly powerful bond. We're all citizens of the United States of America, the greatest country in the history of the world. But we're not so great anymore. We're going to make it great. We're going to make it greater than ever again. Greater than ever again. Right now, we're not respected by other parts of the world, the leaders of the world. We're not respected. We've never been in a position like this. And I think it started with the border, but I actually really think it started more with the horrible surrender that we had in Afghanistan. Remember, I spoke with the head of the Taliban and some of the fake news that is here today with us. Pleasure. Why is he speaking to the Taliban? Why? You know, when they asked Jesse James, why do you rob banks? He said, because that's where the money is, right? Why do I speak to the Taliban? And I did. I spoke to Abdul, who's still the leader of the Taliban. I said, in a very nice way, don't ever kill any of our people. 18 months we went without one American soldier being killed until that tragic, tragic day. And I think that's actually what convinced Putin to go into Ukraine when he saw what was happening, when he saw the gross incompetence of what took place during that short period of time in Afghanistan. I think that's when he decided to go in, but he would have never done it. It's our citizenship that protects our birthright, our freedoms that belong to every American of every race, religion, color, and creed. No matter who we are or what our background in America is, we have the right to freedom of speech. We have the right to freedom of assembly, freedom of association.
Ryan, thank you so much. Looks like you became a patron. That's amazing. And I appreciate it so much.
Free and fair elections, and we have the right to very, very strong and powerful borders. I used to say, without borders, we don't have a country. Now I say without borders and proper elections, we don't have a country. We have a right to religious liberty. We have a right to the full, fair, and impartial rule of law. But also, we can never forget that we have a right to our Second Amendment, which is under siege, but we will prevail. We will prevail. As our Bill of Rights says in those clear and immortal words, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. In times of hardship, crisis, and turmoil, these core American freedoms have always been attacked by those who wish to turn citizens into subjects and take more power for themselves. But thankfully, our nation has always been blessed with Americans like you. You're incredible Americans in this room. Patriots who know that our rights are given up if we let somebody do the wrong thing. It's very simple. It's very precious. But we live by the hand of Almighty God, and that no government can ever be taken away from us. More than 150 years ago, the NRA was born out of the idea that ordinary citizens should be prepared to defend these incredible liberties. And throughout the generations, that is exactly what Americans have done. Over the decades, tens of millions of people, moms and dads, grandfathers and grandmothers, farmers and factory workers, nurses and teachers, soldiers and lawmen, have been proud, and you know this, they have been so proud. I see it all the time. People show me their card. Here it is. They've been very proud card-carrying members of the NRA. Sir, I have my NRA card. I say, okay, good. What else is new? You got a lot of people out there. He has his Trump card. Thank you very much. You got a lot of people out there with that card. It's very important. And during that time, you have been led by a legion of American legends, from great General Ambrose Burnside, who you know, to the great American hero Ulysses S. Grant, and of course, that fearless patriot, the late great American icon, Charlton Heston, great movie actor, great movie star. Down throughout history, time and time again, hardworking citizens like you have answered the call to save American freedom. And now together we are going to save American freedom once again. We have no choice. We're going to have to do it again. Because right now we don't have American freedom. We are going to preserve our heritage. We are going to defend our rights. We are going to protect our communities, protect our schools, and protect our precious children. We are going to secure our liberties for ourselves and for every future generation. In 2022, we are going to vote for tough, on-crime, pro-Second Amendment candidates in record numbers. Get out and vote. Make sure the voting's honest, by the way. Together, we're going to take back the House, we're going to take back the Senate, and in 2024, we are going to take back that great and beautiful White House that we love and cherish so much. And then we're going to make America safer, freer, richer, stronger, prouder, and greater than ever before. To the incredible patriots, people of Texas, God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you.
Okay. So I saw some people or a person in chat, and I've heard the sentiment a lot, saying, you know, he's probably right that he might, that the Republican Party could take back the House, Senate, and then the White House by 2024. And I hear what you're saying, but I want us to not get complacent and not believe that it's inevitable. We can start working now and keep pushing through 2024 to prevent that from happening. It is possible. And we have to have the hope so that we can stay motivated to do everything in our power to prevent him from getting back in power or prevent Republicans from taking over in general. Understood? Well, that was Trump's speech. Obviously wild that you would go and do that right after Uvalde, but we understand that's not what they believe. And obviously NRA is definitely invested in these politicians enough to get a return. And that's what we're seeing here. Different content than his normal speeches. Obviously, is more focused on the gun issue, naturally, because of being at an NRA event. So that was kind of good. At least it was something different than all of his rallies. But overall, similar level of lying. And actually, I think less lying, honestly, even though there was still a lot of it. Because some of the policies he talked about, he actually pushed for, and some of them weren't horrible. In regard to some of the random things, but then obviously, and like we talked about with the Democrats who are in power in certain specific cities who let people out when they shouldn't have been let out of prison, stuff like that. But generally, it was a typical Trump speech.